What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to give you guys a very quick update on what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. But let me first say that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks. They're going to be fractions from the Magnificent 7, and this offer ends very soon, just a couple of weeks. Anyways, for the market right now, we're seeing something very interesting. SPY has seen a little bit of a pop before it started to dip a little bit. We're still testing this resistance right here. We have a nice little range that's developed. So I'll be talking about the charts and zooming in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about something very important. As a reminder, guys, after the market closes, we have Aapl and Coinbase announcing their earnings. Apple's going to be very important. Whatever happens to Aapl could have a very, very profound effect on the overall markets tomorrow. So get ready for that. Apple is going to be giving us more information about their iPhone sales, not to mention things going on in China. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. But looking at the chart right here, we have a nice head and shoulders like structure that's developed on SPY that's holding up very, very nicely so far. And this is still valid as I speak. To invalidate this, we need to see SPY try to break out above at least 510 or so. If that starts breaking out, then yes, that could shift. But as of right now, this is looking valid, and there is a risk of us eventually coming down to the 494s. Now, one thing worth noting is, as of right now, at least for today, we have a small range that has developed. SPY has this resistance right over here. It's currently near the 503 area. This is where we've been getting rejected. Our support is at 500. We've been going back and forth throughout today so far. We may continue to do so until we break in one direction. But I do want to note that there is a risk of SPY dipping again later on. We're kind of shuffling for the time being and could actually dip back into the lower end of this range. And if we even lose support, we could dip even lower than that. But just know the overall sentiment, the overall technicals are a bit more bearish. There is a risk of some downside, and we could be looking for that later on. I want to give you guys that warning. But if you guys were watching my video since yesterday, you would know this. I already gave you guys a warning about my view of the markets, the risks that are still there. So make sure you're always open-minded nonetheless. For the QQQ, we have resistance at 425.5 near our 50 EMA. Then we also have 428. This is where our 200 EMA happens to be, and 430. Our support's at 422.75. If we lose this, we could be dipping down to 420. The range on the QQQ is basically very close to this 424 zone. This is where we have resistance, and we have support currently around the 420 area. We've been holding it within this range throughout the entire day, so we'll see which way we break. But Apple's earnings, I think, is going to have the next effect on whether or not we get a break or not. But there is a risk of this kind of rejecting, kind of dipping a little bit later on. The chart still also has this head and shoulders like structure, which is valid for now. To invalidate this, we have to break past the 430s. We're not really there yet. We're actually pretty far from that level, so we'll watch and see what happens to the QQQ. For Tesla, right now on Tesla, you guys can see we've been on a decline. So you can see we've been downtrending for the last couple of days, ever since we got that massive breakout after the Chinese news came out about FSD being approved. But notice how we have that gap below all the way down here. We have this gap way down here in this 168 area. So there is a risk of us coming down to fill this gap, in my personal opinion. We could dip lower, but we have to wait and see if we lose this gap support and also see how we end up performing. So I see that as another risk, and I do think that Tesla could eventually come down lower. But right now, it doesn't have to necessarily just crash immediately or do anything like that. Tesla's actually holding up decently. It did get a little dip down to 175 as we predicted. It's rebounding a bit, so we'll be watching this resistance at 180. If it breaks through that, we have 182 as resistance, and our support's at 178. Losing that would cause us to dip a little bit. So we'll look for a little pop and then a drop-like move. But Tesla is still showing some weakness from a technical standpoint. So I do think it could push a little bit higher, but it could reject as well off our 50 EMA right here, just under 182, before we just continue to shuffle. So I think that Tesla's going to be range bound for most of the day. I don't think a whole lot is going to happen that's crazy, and I do think that there's a risk of it eventually tipping lower if we get that rejection. So just be careful and be mindful of that. For Nvidia, Nvidia is trying to rebound, but we have this 50 and 200 EMA as resistance. I talked about this 850 area in my earlier video. We got a little rejection, came down to 830, our support, then we bounced back up. So now we're watching to see how this ends up reacting. So as far as Nvidia goes, it's kind of shuffling this 850 area. If we do break through this 862 as our next target, if it rejects, we could be sinking back down lower. So we'll just give this some time. We have Apple's earnings, so I would say that we'll wait for tomorrow to see what the real move is, and we'll give this some time. It's holding up decently, but just know there is always that risk of downside looking at the current technicals because of the fact that we technically have a downtrend Right, we have this double top leg pattern and we are kind of sinking. This does resemble a slanted head and shoulders, at least somewhat when you kind of zoom out like this. So I'd be careful with Nvidia. We'll see how high this goes, if we can try to break 850 or not, and we'll see if it continues to shuffle or not. And then lastly, we have Aapl. Apple's just shuffling between 171 and 172.5, kind of stuck within this range. It's been just trading sideways all day. Will we get a big breakout into the 180 area if we get a big pump thanks to earnings, or are we about to get a rug pull? We'll just have to wait and see. Otherwise, we're just range bound for now. For Amazon, we're also holding up decently, but just know that we've been stuck within this range for the last couple of days. We have this resistance very close to this 183.5 to 182 area. We have support at 176, and we've been stuck for now. But I do think there's a risk of this dipping if we lose 179.79. So watch that as critical support. Otherwise, we're just trading sideways on Amazon. It may be heavily dictated by Apple. Same thing with Meta. I said to everyone yesterday, Meta's going to try to base at 430, and that's what happened today. We actually came down to 432, then rebounded. Look at resistance now at 441.5, and we have support at 437. If we lose that, we'll look for 435, then eventually 432. We're kind of shuffling right now on Meta. You guys can see it right here. We're kind of going back and forth. So I'll give this some time and just see how this moves. But that's all I'm saying, at least for the timing in terms of how this is moving. With that being said, Tesla's kind of shuffling in the 180 area. So I'll give this some time and just wait. And I just want to say that even if Tesla pops a little bit, just be careful with this resistance. It could reject off this range. There's not really a whole ton going on with the market for now. I think the big move is going to come again tomorrow. There is a risk of the market later on getting rejection, selling off a little bit, but then we'll see what happens with Apple's earnings. So I want to make that very clear. Thank you all so much for listening. Hope you guys have a very, very awesome rest of the day, and I'll see you guys very soon in just a couple of hours. Thank you, and peace out.